Hi.
Hello. Welcome. I'm glad we got the opportunity to sit down with you today. I got an opportunity to hear the song.
Yeah.
And I think just like others, you should really tell them how the song was created and why it was created.
It's a lot of telling. It's a big story, you know.
Well, let's get started.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So to start this off, I really want to talk about the inspiration behind the song. And my question is, what is the inspiration behind the song, and what is it based on?
The song is inspired by the life and death of my friend David Lasley. The life part is the most important bit, of course. He had a big, big life. And we have musical history that spans 53 years. And in this one little song, verse to chorus, I tried to give you sort of a glimpse of what that life was like. Yeah, and some of some of the intricacies of our friendship.
100%. And was there any, because I did take a moment to investigate, like most artists should, was there any co-writers on it? And I saw that there was. So my question is, speak a little bit more about that, your co-writer.
My co-writer is Matt Cusson.
Okay.
He's a guy I met in the Berkshires in Massachusetts in 1960 something. I don't know, that doesn't even feel right. 1980s, in the 80s. Probably before I got clean, but he was just a kid, like a 16, 17-year-old kid, like these guys, you know. He was working at Tanglewood, and he was setting up tables, and he ran over to me, said, "You're Arnold McCuller, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm a huge fan." So I said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "My name's Matt, and I write songs." And I said, "Play me something, you know, the typical thing that somebody says, and I hate on the spot." He said, "No, I can't play it." I said, "Yeah, there's a room here, a small little rehearsal room. I'll take you in there and play me a song." He played me one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard in my life. And that was the beginning of our relationship. That night, we stayed up all night and wrote our very first tune, which made it onto one of my records. Anyway, Matt and I have a relationship as co-writers.
Did you, because I know you were talking about this with your co-writer, so did your co-writer ever meet David?
Oh yeah.
Okay, they had.
And David adored him because they had similar voices. This is what you're getting at. I remember we talked about this.
Yeah.
Yes, we did talk about this. Yeah, Matt sings in a high range, but not falsetto. He just has a really high first tenor, but it's a soft. So his voice also sounds like a black person. And he emulates. And so here I am, all this time, my whole life, I'm around these white guys who sound like black people, you know, just because I met them, and that's what has happened in my universe. Anyway.
So writing the song and explaining to the co-writer your connection.
Oh yeah, I didn't have to explain. He knew David. They had met one another, and they were mutual admiration society. He loved David's writing. He loved David's voice. David loved his writing, and David loved his voice. So it was a no-brainer that Matt and I should write this song together, and that Matt should be the one to help me get it out here. And that's what I'm here to do, just get it out to the public and let people know what it's about and why I wrote it. As co-writers. And he played the keyboards and created most of the backing vocals that we sang together. So he would do 3 tracks of vocals, probably 6 tracks of vocals, and I would do 6 tracks, and we blended them together to make, you know, that sort of wall of sound that David and I have always loved, and, you know, from the doo-wop days and all the backing vocal singer days and all that stuff.
Messing with those layers of different vocals and different ranges with different layers.
Yeah.
Right.
The only other instrumentation is a bass.
It's kind of like you turn your voice into an instrument.
And there's a bass guitar on there, and that's it, Jimmy Johnson.
to continue the rhythm, because I'm getting so much good information, since we're talking about it, what was the musical element used to convey the message and the mood of the song?
We were originally just going to do piano voice.
Okay.
Which was a big deal for David. He loved piano voice demos. He actually did a full double album of piano voice demos.
Double album?
Yeah, of all the things that he never got to record or no one ever recorded. So they were publishers' demos, basically.
Right.
So the publishers could pull from this record and present any of these songs to sell to artists. So piano voice was important to him and important to all of us, because when I moved to Los Angeles, that's how I made my living. I was doing piano voice demos for publishing companies. And I had a rate for the lead vocal and another rate for backing vocals, So you get a nice few checks over a month or a few months, So the point is that piano voice was the way to go because of David's inspiration and who he was. And Matt's backing vocal arrangements he's been nominated for Grammys for that.
Wow.
For King's Return. And he's just savant. He's like an idiot savant when it comes to the music, He's great.
I love that you spoke on the instruments and the piano, because in the song there are pianos, and I wanted to ask, is there a choice of instruments, because there's multiple instruments within the song, but was there a choice in instrumentation because of David, or did you just go with what was around you at the time?
We started with acoustic piano, and I said, "Oh, it sounds a little too Broadway for me." It sounded like it was a show tune, and my voice can sound like that. I know I've got a legit theater voice, and I know it can be sometimes very big. So a piano voice demo is just going to sound like a show tune.
Yes.
So I said, you got to play this on Rhodes. It's got to be on, an electric keyboard. So to give it a little more soul and a little more softness, and that helped a lot. It helped with my vocal and my vocal interpretation. So we did it with just piano, Rhodes rather, and voice, and that's all there is. And then we piled on all these vocals, and we called Jimmy Johnson and said, "Please come play bass on it." My last call, by the way, was to James Taylor, but I couldn't get him to play guitar. I wanted James's guitar because the historical part about me working with David is that, first, way before, David and I worked in Hair together, the Broadway musical Hair. I think I have a photograph here of my Hair days. This is one of those weird moments of me in the Broadway musical.
I remember that photo.
Yeah. So
iconic moment.
He played Margaret Mead, was one of his characters, and Margaret Mead was always in drag. First famous drag queen, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, we have to go back. Right. Thank you for opening those doors.
Margaret Mead. He and I met in Cleveland, Ohio, in the spring of 1970.
Wow.
And he had come down from Detroit from a company of hair there with like 3 or 4 other people. And I was just wandering the streets of Cleveland working for a railroad company, the Erie Lackawanna Railroad, as a covered hopper clerk. And a friend of mine said, "I'm going to these auditions for Hair, the Broadway musical Hair." And a few nights before, we were hanging out with the cast. He had met one of the cast members. So I was hanging out with these kids, and they said, "We're going to have auditions next Thursday," or whatever it was, whatever day. I said, "Great." And my friend is a dancer, and I said, "Well, I'm sure you'll get in, because they love, it's a Broadway musical, dancing and singing.
You just go together with it."
And what they were looking for were great singers first, who could dance. So my friend went in dancing his ass off. He asked him to sing a song, and he sings like a frog.
Just flat.
Flat. And I came in, I did a soft shoe for them. That's all they wanted from me. And they asked me to sing, and I sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. And that was my introduction to Hair, the Broadway musical that I continued to do for the next 2 years over, through Canada, throughout the entire United States. And David was there too. So we were hired at the same time and paired up to sing What a Piece of Work Is Man, the only duet in the entire musical, together. And it was always a white guy and a black guy sitting on a bench, sitting on a riser or something, with our legs dangling, singing, "What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty." And I would have the lower harmony, he'd have the higher harmony. It was just so gorgeous. I wish I had a recording of that. Anyway, so that was our introduction.
Yeah, you had me in a trance. I'll let you know that entire story. I'm glad you told it to us.
Yeah, that was our introduction.
Then let's take us through it. Because
wait a minute, time out. The other bit, I forgot to. It's in the middle of all that were a bunch of years living and writing and working in New York City.
That's what I was going to ask. When you started with Hair, you talked about the Broadway, you two together. Mm-hmm. So can we kind of get a little bit more after that? Like, how did the relationship continue to grow and develop after that interaction?
Thanks. David finished Hair, I think when did I finish? 70 to 72. I think David finished 71. And he went from straight to Broadway because we were doing theater. So musical theater was going to be our game, And he ended up doing a play called Dude, written by Galt McDermott, the same writer as Hair. And he got another shot at Broadway, but the play was a flop. It doesn't matter. He was, was doing theater. And
right.
It doesn't matter what the success or the failure of something, as long as you're still honing your craft.
And what you love.
And doing what you love, exactly. And David and I said, this theater shit is really hard work, Why don't we just sing backup? Why don't we just sing? All we do is sing anyway. We're just walking down the streets of New York, harmonizing and singing. And he and his sister and I would love to sing together. And we put together a group of 3, David, my friend, Lynn Pitney, who was actually in Hair with me, and from Cleveland. She was one of the original Cleveland guys, girls, gals. She, him, they, them, thee, though.
She was a being.
She was a being, and she, David, Lynn, and I would start singing backing vocals for Medras and Apple with the guys in New York. And we did the demo tracks for Tony Orlando and Dawn, the TV show. So one of us would sing the lead vocal for Tony, and then we do the backing vocals for Dawn, with Thelma and her sister. They were the girls that sang backup for Tony Orlando, and that was one of our first gigs. And then I got a gig singing backup for Melissa Manchester, and then it started snowballing. And by the late 70s, I was on a bike in New York, riding a bike around town, and we would do 3 and 4 sessions a day. Commercials, jazz albums, pop records, a ton of disco records. David and I are the backing vocalists on New York, New York City Girl, Native New Yorker. Native New Yorker by a group called Odyssey. It was David, myself, and Lynn, Susan Collins. David is on the Chic records with Luther Vandross. David and Luther sang all those records. David and Luther and I did a tribute to the Beach Boys, a disco tribute to the Beach Boys, which was really hideously awful, but sounds so great because it's the 3 of us having fun in the studio. So that was our career, and it was really big. And Luther said, "I'm going to be bigger than this." Luther went off and fucking literally did it.
Yeah.
Because he had the perseverance and he had the drive. I was still getting high doing drugs. I was still like having a great time. I was going to the clubs nightly. And David was, really becoming a very prolific songwriter. And the New York days were really golden.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Because it seems like that was a great moment in your relationship to really boost the connection between you and David. So
yeah, it's New York. He left New York first, or no? I think Allie Willis left New York first to come to LA. there were a pack of us that were sort of traveling and hanging out together.
Did you guys have like a group name?
No. we would call ourselves the 21st Street Club because there were two people live on West 21st in Chelsea. And we would sometimes call ourselves the 21st Street Club. That was Andre DeShields, who's still in New York. He's like a Broadway diva now. You know?
Oh, wow.
Elena Reed, who's passed away. She lived on the Upper West Side with us. She was our mother. She cooked. We did hair together. It's just so much history. I can't even get it all on tape. We just all did a lot of sessions together in New York. And those sessions created the platform for someone to hear us in the studio and say, James Taylor, I heard two guys that I think you would love to sing backing vocals for you on your next tour. He had never had singers. He only sang with himself, and maybe he and Carole King would do a tour and she would sing with him. But he had been piling a lot of backing vocals on the records. He needed to replicate that live. And he called David after seeing us on Saturday Night Live, maybe with Jennifer Warnes, and also on record with a friend of his. And he said, come by my house. I want to sing with you guys, see what it feels like. We got there about noon. We didn't leave until like 7 that evening.
Oh yeah, you guys were good.
Just singing everything and anything. Doo-wop, James songs, other people's songs. We just sat there and drank water for 7 hours. And we weren't separated except for the fact that David left the tour. And I just left just last year. And I've been back since to sort of sit in, but you know, it's a long life of touring, which is a very exhausting thing to do.
100%. I know, I can imagine.
You know,
you've been doing it for a while.
Packing and traveling all the time. So that's our hair history, our New York history, and our California history, a little of our California history.
Well, let's be a little bit. So to keep the flow going, I want a little bit. I'm even tongue twisted because I'm still just thinking about the story, to be honest. But as we continue, I wanted to get into the lyrics, the meaning. So my question is, what is the meaning behind the lyrics? Is there any symbolisms or metaphors that you want to amplify for us?
Great. It's a good question because we call it Ode to David, but I call it Old 8 Mile. O-L-E or O-L apostrophe L, Old 8 Mile.
Why?
Because Detroit, one of the longest roads running through the city of Detroit is 8 Mile Road. And Eminem has mentioned that.
He made it iconic.
Right, exactly. So I wanted to call it Old 8 Mile because it sang better. But the actual tour bus was on its way to Grand Rapids, where David was in hospice care. And I was basically going to see David at the end of his life. And the song came about on the tour bus. We were on the road. We were winding this tour down, and one of our last stops was Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is exactly where he was. The hotel was like a 10-minute Uber ride from there. And I said, David, I'll be there. He was, before he got sick, he was planning on coming to see the show and all this stuff. But anyway, the point is that on that ride, I wrote the lyric because I was listening to his voice in my head. And I was listening to his songs, and the lyric is something like, listen to your songs along the way, but, you'll always be with me, kind of a thing. Can't even recite my own lyric.
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
It shows that it was really.
It was just, the moment. But one of the metaphorical things was talking about the fact that he was bipolar, but not saying he was bipolar or he had a disease or a disorder, or what I said was mind the sidewalk cracks, watch the steps you take. remember to touch the doorknobs for good luck. These were the three things that he did. As he was walking through New York City, we were walking through the streets, he wouldn't step on a crack. You know, you've heard that, step on a crack, break your mama's back. Yeah. David literally would not step on a fucking crack.
I can imagine.
You know, and he counted in his head. People who have autism or autistic stuff often count a lot. So there's always numbers going. He remembers numbers like crazy. And he counts and counts and counts. Just amazing to me, which makes him a great singer because of the mathematical, thing. Music is math, you know.
100%.
You know.
People don't know that.
So that was one of the metaphorical moments, I think, in the lyric. It's in the chorus.
Well, let you know, the lyrics are very rich.
Thanks.
Kind of helping your memory there. Very rich lyrics, and I love the breakdown that you gave to let us know that those lyrics really are truthfully deep, and to know that you were writing that on your way to your last show where he was there.
He was in Grand Rapids, and the bottom line is that I was on the bus listening to his songs. I don't know which song I was listening to, but one of the songs he had written, he had earbuds on, and I got a text message in my earbuds, and it was about 3 a.m. It said David passed away at 3 a.m. and we were arriving about 8. So he left before we could arrive. So here I am writing these words about him, and I just sort of put the words away for a while until I could come back together and finish the song and come up with a real, full circle with it. So I didn't get to formally say goodbye, but they put the phone to his head in his hospital room, and I told him, I'll be there at 10:30. James is going to come with me. We're going to come and say goodbye to you. And they said he nodded his head or something. He made some sign, because oddly enough, in the end, he lost his voice. So he couldn't even speak.
It's kind of like was letting him know that him being alive was being a great singer per se. Because like you say, in the end, he lost his voice. And I look at that as kind of like the show is done. The show is done. Right. Because look at you love.
That's one of the metaphors that I bring up. The curtain is down, the screens are folded and packed. I specifically said that. And that's what was going on the night before, I'm getting on the bus. Oh my God, I was kind of anxious to know that I'm on my way to Grand Rapids, and to see my friend for the last time, hopefully. But I didn't get to make it. Well, oddly enough, his niece was there, and she met me. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Oh, we'd like to meet you." And I said, "Well, I think I'm gonna go do some laundry." I said, "This is a day off. This is what I do on days off." I went and did laundry, and we met for lunch, and that was it.
And I like that. So my next question, I want to go into love, so contributions. So on the song, there was multiple contributions. Mm-hmm. Can we speak a little bit more about the contributions that were given to the song and how it really, how it was important to get those contributions to create this song? Like, was there like a certain mixer that you got?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, it was all Matt and me.
All Matt and you.
It was basically Arnold and Matt, and I told Matt we were too close to this, so we did send it out to someone else to mix and master. Jan, friend of Matt's on the East Coast. So Arnold and Matt, Jimmy Johnson, James Taylor's on there in his spirit, I know, and David is in there. We found Jimmy found an old piece of music with David's voice where he's singing "It's All Right." And I think it was something that Jimmy saved from, we did a lot of recording with James on the road. We would go into hotel rooms, or we'd find a studio on the road, finishing up an album, whatever. And there was just this piece of tape of David saying, "It's all right." And we found 3 of those, put them together, and as I'm singing the chorus, the out chorus, here I am, da 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 da, whatever the words are. David's going, it's all right, in the same key. It's the end of the song, you know. So we found this piece of music that we were able to insert and have David there too. So, you know, the beginning and the ending come all full circle. Everything comes full circle, you know.
Because I'm fully paying attention because you wrote this song on your way to see him. And, you know, the song was not completed that day. And it comes to be that David helped you write the song because he's on it and he has his own lyrics that he put in there.
Yeah.
So you guys wrote the song together. And it also,
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and it also hits me to think that was, you know, what you would love to say to you
It's all right. It's all right for you to you know, feel heartbroken, or for you to feel lost, or for you to feel gratitude, or for you to feel whatever you're feeling. Whatever the feeling is, feelings are all right. And then most of us spend most of our lives running from feelings. But whatever that feeling is, it's all right.
100%. Yeah. My next question is, what is the emotional roller coaster you intended the song to take the listener through? For example, did you want us to feel a certain type of happiness in the beginning, a certain type of sadness in the beginning, a certain type of passion? When you and your co-writer were writing this, what was the emotional roller coaster you wanted us to go through while listening to this song?
Lyrically, it was basically being on a tour and being on a bus and trying to get to a location, and the location is to be with your best friend before he passes away. So that's the journey of this song. Being on the bus, being on the tour, finishing the thing, and then reminiscing in the choruses, you know, all the choices we made in spite of, you know, our plans, or in spite of what we wanted. These are real choices that we make in life, and we made choices, and we don't apologize for them. We don't apologize for any of the choices we made, and I think that was one of the cool things about David. He never apologized for being who he was mentally, physically, or spiritually. He was a very spirited human being, and his spirit spoke way louder than any of his words.
I'm just gonna take a moment because I love that you said that, because I saw one of his videos on YouTube of him playing it. Not him playing the piano, someone playing the piano for him, and him singing. And it was around the time one of his legs
had been removed. Yeah.
But
yeah, his friend Roxanne Seaman.
His spirit.
She was with him, as you know, we were all together with him, but Roxanne was one of those who would go above and beyond. And she carried him from the nursing home into her house in Los Angeles. So she brought him from the desert to LA. And he wanted to sing and play with our friend, can't think of his name, but the guy who was playing piano, Mitch was his name. And Mitch is a dear friend. And Mitch played Over the Rainbow for David. And it's just a gorgeous rendition. And the funny thing is, he's doing this to pitch himself up, which he does. And he would, you know, apologize. At the end of the song, he apologized for the way he was doing things.
Yeah.
You know, but in spite of all the choices you made, you were beautiful.
Amen.
You know what I mean? That's the same thing. That's basically the thing I think I wanted to portray. In the end, I said to him, we sat, okay, this is a nice thing for you. At the end, in the nursing home, we sat, and I played him my new album. I had done a tribute to Johnny Mathis, and I had 5 tracks of that. I played that for him and had him gush over that. And I would find things that I knew he'd like and play them for him. And because he was not at all technologically inclined. He was not inclined technologically. And he you know, he would use a phone but struggle with it like I do. he would not be able to do an iPad or a computer, just couldn't pull it together. And I was pulling up video for him and all this amazing content that's just been out there forever that he had never seen.
What was one of the things that you pulled out that amazed him that day?
Probably Jesus Hit Like an Atom Bomb thing I did with Ry Cooder. I pulled that up maybe. Or I'd pull up some, there was a performance of his at Reno Sweeney's in New York City that someone had put up and that he had never seen before, which was just gorgeous. And he was just soaring and singing like a bird.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, that's enough about me and David. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you for giving me your time and helping me find a way to present this song to the public without too much, not in the normal way, without context. They needed context.
100%.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thanks. Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
Is that too much?
I know this one.
Sorry. Oh my God. I took so many liberties with that. But it's just finding a place